Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined today by attorney Cesar Gavidia, and we're going to discuss tips for preventing your long-term disability claim with Northwestern Mutual from being denied. And Cesar, Northwestern Mutual is not one of the larger disability insurance companies. They offer group coverage, they offer individual disability coverage, and we've probably helped hundreds, if not thousands, of Northwestern Mutual claimants. But in this video, it's kind of geared around the monthly claim handling service that we offer, in which we manage every aspect of a claimant's long-term disability claim with Northwestern Mutual, and we'll talk about what we do in that. But I want to provide some helpful information for people of actions and steps that they can take to keep themselves from being denied. So when a person first calls you and says, look, I have Northwestern Mutual, what is your thoughts about Northwestern Mutual versus if they called you and said, hey, I'm with, Cigna, Unum, Prudential, one of the big run-of-the-mill group disability companies?
Right. Well, one of the first things that I probably already know without even asking is that they probably are insured under an individual disability insurance policy, meaning that it's a policy that they went out and purchased on their own, as opposed to having through some, larger employer benefit type of plan. There are some employer benefit plans at Northwestern Mutual, but it's not typical.
It's not their bread and butter. They're
right.
trying to make it bigger, but
right.
It's not their bread and butter.
I'd say out of every 10 Northwestern Mutual cases, 9 of them are likely going to be individual disability insurance policies. I'm also going to know that in dealing with Northwestern Mutual, they're one of the more reasonable disability insurers out there. They're not one of these companies that will kind of just, as soon as your claim is in, they're already putting it into a medical review to basically say, with a predetermined decision that you're not going to be eligible for benefits. Northwestern Mutual, you can expect, is going to do their homework. They're going to, be very thorough in terms of all of the documentation they're going to ask for and they're going to review. And they're going to have the claim reviewed probably by specialists who are qualified for the conditions that you're claiming disability for. So if it's an autoimmune disorder or if it's some sort of orthopedic issue, you're going to see specialists geared specifically to those conditions that Northwestern Mutual is going to be conferring with to determine whether there are limitations here that qualify you for benefits and eligibility under the terms of their policy.
So with Northwestern Mutual being one of the smaller companies and usually being more reasonable than not being reasonable, I find though that there comes a higher attention to detail. So yes, there are companies who are looking, they pick up a claim and they basically go, well, what can I find to deny this claim? And I think Northwestern Mutual has been one of the few companies that actually says, where is the evidence that's supporting disability? And if it's there, then we'll go with that and make sure it's sufficient enough. And that's truly a different philosophy than many of the other companies. But with that comes a higher level of intelligence from a claims person who knows what they're looking for, as opposed to many of the other disability insurance companies who have what I call puppets or paper pushers, who are just getting the files, giving it to medical review, and whatever that medical reviewer, nurse, or doctor says, that's what they do. And I feel like the Northwestern Mutual claims people maybe have a little bit more guidance, independence, knowledge to properly be able to evaluate records and take people more at their word rather than looking for excuses to any excuse they can to deny a claim.
Yeah, I mean, usually, in the days that you still had these massive insurance conferences, and we'd be going to these lectures and different, educational courses there. Who's sitting in the class basically? It's a lot of Northwestern agents or claims adjusters. These people have pretty, they're pretty well qualified and they're pretty well certified to be looking into this. It's like a profession to them versus just the job.
So, due to the amount of detail though that is going to come from, or scrutiny I should say, from a Northwestern person, let's get into what steps the claimant should be taking to really protect their long-term disability benefits. And I want to start with, as you know, the go-to is the medical records. How do you make sure your medical records are up to the standards, or how does a claimant make sure their records are up to the standards that Northwestern Mutual is going to need to see?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said records because, look, medical support is important. But if your doctor's saying, oh yes, you're disabled, let me write this letter for you, saying that you couldn't work in your occupation, that letter is really meaningless if it's not supported by the medical records, by the medical documentation. That's the foundation of the disability claim. And in order to establish a really good foundation in terms of the medical support and medical records, you have to be very consistently treating. This is where you kind of get into this gray area, because your doctor may only want to be seeing you at certain intervals. In other words, maybe only every 3 to 6 months or something like that, especially with conditions that you don't expect to see a lot of progression or change between month to month. Certainly, you want to see your doctor as often as they want to have you come in and report to them. But also, what you report to them is important. You are basically all of the information that you're giving to them, they should be noting in your medical chart, in your records, all those complaints about any, the symptoms you're having in terms of discomfort or pain or fatigue or weakness or limitations with doing certain activities. If you're not reporting that to your doctor, then that's not making it into your medical chart and medical records. And when the insurance company's reviewing everything and they're going through your records to see if the records basically are consistent with the support that your doctor is giving you, they're going to say, well, we don't see that the records really support the limitations the doctor's placing on you. We don't see that there's really much complaints in terms of pain or fatigue that you're reporting to us now. So where is that? So that's really important, really consistent reporting to your doctor and accurate reporting of your symptoms.
Right, because a lot of claimants go to the doctor and the doctor says, how are you doing? And they basically say, I'm doing okay. But you're doing okay compared to where you've been, or if you look at a pain scale of 0 to 10 and 10 is the worst, your normal is to basically have pain every day.
Right.
But your 4 or 5 is someone else's 10. So it's not, you can't go in and just be like, look, as long as I stay in probably the bad manner that I'm already in, living with a 4 or 5, pain level, then you think you're okay. And then the doctor writes, patient's okay, no additional complaints. Well, Northwestern Mutual is going to eat up that medical record.
Right.
So you have to treat every single office visit like it's the first visit. And I often say to claimants, I think you should be keeping a pain log or a symptom log, and you need to document any difficulties you're having. It's not just the pain. It's, did you have difficulty picking something? Did you turn your neck and something hurt you? Did you bend over and something hurt? Were you laid up in bed for 30 minutes? Did you have to go stand every 15 minutes when you went out to eat? Whatever it may be with whatever medical condition you have that's changing your life and making it where you can't be a reliable employee that can work for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, continuously like a normal non-disabled person would be, needs to be documented. Bring that to the doctor. Ask the doctor to either attach that to the records or read in some of the things. Patient comes and has documented the following complaints. Because if it's not there, Northwestern Mutual eats it up and says, look, I see, you went to the doctor, there isn't really a lot here. They documented a few things, but a lot of times at the end of the day, the disability company is not going to challenge the diagnosis. It's whether or not your complaints are raising to the level which make them disabling. Talk about, though, along the lines of the doctor, Cesar, the importance of filling out the attending physician statement and how you assist claimants in making sure that raises to the level of acceptability by Northwestern Mutual.
Yeah, the attending physician statement's critical. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone contact us and say, I've been getting paid for 4 years, and they asked for this form to be completed by my doctor, and the doctor filled it out or had someone in his office fill it out, and the next thing I know, they stopped my benefit payments. Northwestern Mutual is going to review that form very, very closely, and if the right look, there are certainly areas that are going to be, just simple checkoffs or provide an explanation to this. But if they're not indicating that you continue to remain disabled with these limitations that translate in your inability to work in your occupation or in any occupation, depending on what the language of your policy requires, then they're going to terminate your benefits as soon as they have any indication that, from your doctors that you no longer qualify under the terms of their policy.
And so claimants who have been on claim with Northwestern Mutual for a year, 2 years, or years should not let their guard down with these attending physician statements and write same as previously reported or anything like that.
Right.
Because you don't know, first of all, if you're going to have a changed claim rep at Northwestern Mutual, and the claim rep at Northwestern Mutual is likely going to take that attending physician statement, give it to their in-house medical team, and you don't know who the new individual is there that's going to review that claim and be like, oh, I think the claimant should have been doing this, or the claimant's been complacent in their treatment for the past couple of years. Maybe now it's time to run some video surveillance, or there's a new medication. They're not doing appropriate care. Lots of different things can come up. So the point is that you always have to have your guard up and always do a thorough job with that attending physician statement, because you're right, that's the impetus for something that can lead to a claim denial. And then also, Cesar, touch on the claimant statement and how important it is to be honest and communicate everything that's going on without exaggerating your symptoms, because you're a claimant who thinks if I don't tell them this, they're going to think that I can go back to work.
So remember, these forms are basically how they're receiving their updates on you. Sometimes they'll make a phone call and say, hey, how are you doing? Do you have any new treatment? But typically it's in these forms. That precedes usually that type of phone call. And it's really important that what you say in these forms and what you represent to them in these forms is accurate. They may ask you about your current activities. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? That's a very common question with Northwestern Mutual. And a lot of people say, well, I watch TV, I read, I do some cooking, and I'll run some errands. But if there's anything in these forms or not in these forms that might be inconsistent with something that is in your daily life, then you can expect that there's going to be some questions on behalf of Northwestern Mutual that they're going to be making. They may say, hey, do you mind if we come out and sit down with you for a lengthy interview? Because now they may be suspecting that you're not telling them everything about your daily activities. And that's kind of the snowball. It starts there. And then before you know it, you've dug yourself in real deep, and it can be very hard to get out.
On Northwestern Mutual's claim forms, I know we often put addendums. And why do you do that? And talk about the usefulness of why you highly recommend
Well,
that.
I mean, with Northwestern Mutual's forms, it's a lot. They're a lot like many of the forms that we see. I mean, there's very limited space to basically provide the response, a full response, an accurate response to their question. Sometimes there's a certain art to explaining and answering these questions, because, like I said, you want to inform enough. But do you have to over-inform where you're basically just giving them more information than they really need? And I've seen both, and you really kind of have to strike a perfect balance. And so with an addendum, if you need one, then we use that. I mean, it's an area that maybe you can go into more detail about the limitations you have and how they really are affecting your ability to work, to do and to perform certain activities, not just your work. If you're like partially disabled or something, discussing and explaining how things are progressing and how you're maybe cutting back some, or how it's affecting your ongoing work activities. Or if you're totally disabled, maybe on some things in terms of daily living activities that you have. They always ask you about hobbies and different things that you do. And is it okay to have hobbies and still live a life? Of course it is. Of course it's okay to do those things. If it's something that you have done or doing now once, you did the past week, it's not something you really regularly engage in. You went out and you trimmed a hedge that's in your front yard that's been bothering you, and now that is that something that you really have to report? No, I don't think you need to add an addendum for that type of thing. But I think that when it's necessary, when you really need to provide a level of detail that gives Northwestern Mutual a better understanding of what's going on with your condition and the way it's impacting your ability to work in your occupation or conduct your daily activities, then I think an addendum is a good idea.
Right, and a lot of the guidance we've done too is we've had many claimants who go from either residual to total or total to residual, and Northwestern Mutual has a very claimant-friendly residual definition of disability, where basically I think if you can't do something for less than 15% of the time that you used to be able to, or as much time as you used to, then you could be considered residually disabled as long as you have at least a 20% loss of income from what you previously earned. So residual opens up a lot of opportunities for a claimant to be able to maximize the benefits on their policy as well. And of course, we've represented a lot of doctors by Northwestern Mutual policies and dealing with the transition from residual to total and talking about other occupations as they may want to do. And we just recently did another video, I believe you and I did, on the medical occupation definition of disability, which is different than any other company that offers what they call an own occupation definition of disability. So if you're a doctor, I encourage you to specifically look out for our video on that. So, we always offer a free initial consultation, Cesar, for claimants, no matter what stage they're at in their claim, and especially someone who's on claim. The only thing we need is a copy of their policy to review. So we encourage claimants to reach out to us for that. We also encourage you to take a look around our website. For Northwestern Mutual in particular, we have provided a lot of information, whether it's cases we've resolved, summaries of lawsuits, occupational information, medical information. We try to give you the whole flavor of how Northwestern Mutual is going to evaluate a long-term disability claim and provide you with that education so that you know what to expect in the future. Because Cesar, you know that claimants, it's hard enough to deal with their medical documentation. Their life is turned upside down. They're not working anymore. But they're not trained in how a disability insurance company thinks. So we put all this information out there on our website, and we ask for reviews from other people about the company so that a claimant should always be aware, like looking over their shoulder as to what's coming next. How does this company think? And that's the big thing. We want you to know how they think. We'll guide you and protect you through this process, but the more you know, the better you're going to be able to help yourself and work with us, in the future. So no matter where you live in the country, contact Cesar, myself. We welcome the opportunity to speak with you, and we'll be here should you need us in the future. Thank you.